What does IPSO do? Supports families in 104 member countries, shares knowledge, research and best practices, offers free diagnosis to countries where there is none, shares, sponsors and supports conferences, and helps build PWS associations around the world. How did IPSO start? In 1987, Jean Philips Martensen from Sweden and Henk Moselaar from the Netherlands joined together in a dream to have a worldwide conference on Prader-Willi syndrome. In 1988, Professor Suzanne Cassidy shared the dream and agreed to chair the scientific part of the conference. In 1991, the very first international PWS conference was held in Noordwijkerhout, the Netherlands, where 200 people from 22 countries attended. IPSO was born, with Jean its first president. My goal was to develop an international umbrella organisation which would stimulate collaborative research and reach out to all corners of the globe to identify and bring together our sparse PWS population. At this time, the only known PW associations were the USA in 1975, Canada 1978, Australia 1979, the UK 1981, Netherlands 1985, Sweden, Denmark and Norway 1986, and Belgium in 1987. The second IPSO conference, held in June 1995, was in Oslo, Norway. Professor Suzanne Cassidy and Martin Ritson chaired the scientific conference. 224 people attended, with delegates from 24 countries. Major topics were mapping the chromosome deletion and PWS behaviour, and for the first time, growth hormone treatment was starting to be seriously researched. Along with new board members, the first scientific advisors were appointed, Dr. Suzanne Cassidy and Ellie Smith. Andrea Prader was born in Switzerland and lived in Zurich for most of his life. In his medical career, he specialised as a paediatric endocrinologist. In 1956, he and his colleagues, Dr. Heinrich Willi and Dr. Alexis Labhart, first described a collection of characteristics presenting in children which became known as the Prader-Willi syndrome. Professor Prader became chair of the Department of Paediatrics, University of Zurich, and director of the Children's Hospital. He was also president of the European Society for Paediatric Endocrinology. He attended 2 of our international PW conferences as an honoured guest speaker. As one of the authors who first described this syndrome in 9 patients aged 5 to 23 years in 1956, I am happy to be alive to witness the increasing interest among paediatricians and geneticists for this syndrome. Concerning management, we have learned from the parents more than they have learned from us. Dr. Prader died on the 3rd of June 2001, aged 81. His support for all families and people with Prader-Willi syndrome was legendary. We salute and remember you. The third International PWS Conference was held in May 1998 in Jesolo, Italy. Studies into molecular testing were starting to show differences in the diagnosis of Prader-Willi syndrome. The first mouse model for PWS was presented. Healthcare guidelines from the PWSA USA were presented. Concept of longitudinal research was promoted. The need for brain donations for research and the need for ethical and legal framework relating to the care of those with the syndrome. After working tirelessly for 7 years, Jean steps down from the presidency and Giorgio Fornasia was nominated IPSO's new president. During her time, Jean spoke at many conferences in Europe, Australasia and the United States. She worked with families around the world, encouraging and urging them to reach out to others and take up the challenge of not only caring for those with PWS, but educating and teaching others what it means to have the syndrome and how best to care for them. Jean was presented with a Certificate of Appreciation for founding IPSO, signed by 22 countries, and a gold medal inscribed, "Without you, Jean, we would not be here. We salute you." Building on the foundation left by Jean, Giorgio extended this further, emphasizing the need for Latin American countries, along with Eastern Europe, Middle East and Asian countries, to benefit from IPSO's knowledge. At this time, there were 21 member countries. Through his own personal travel and business associates, Giorgio started making contacts in Latin America. And in 1999, IPSO had its first website, hosted by Steve Lund from the United States. The new millennium. Pharmacia, later to become Pfizer, granted us a much-needed financial boost. This generosity was continued under Giorgio Fornasia's guidance until 2010. The first Latin American PW conference was held in Paraguay, November 2000. Through his contacts with the Bacharotto Institute, Giorgio was able to negotiate diagnoses for countries where this was not available, and to this day IPSO covers the cost of this, which allows it to be free where needed. This has become a cornerstone of IPSO's work in the world. What is BIRD and what does it do? The Bacharotto Institute for Rare Diseases, BIRD, is an extraordinary foundation established by Mauro Bacharotto's parents after he died from an undiagnosed rare disease. IPSO's connection to the Bacharotto family through Giorgio Fornasia has enabled us to sponsor over 600 free diagnoses from 36 countries around the world where diagnosis is unobtainable. The tests are performed on DNA extracts from dried blood spots using methylation-sensitive PCR. All analyses are performed according to current EU guidelines, maintaining very strict laboratory standards. The first ever delegates meeting was held at BIRD in Vicenza, Italy in 2002. Thanks to the generosity of some Italian parents, IPSO delegates from around the world were able to meet in Vicenza, Italy for the first time. We had 90 people from 44 countries. We stayed at BIRD, visited the laboratory, held meetings, talked, ate and sang. Quite a lot. It's 2002. IPSO is growing. Recognising the importance of our Latin-speaking countries, Giorgio collaborated with our delegates in Chile to present the second Latin American PWS conference. In 2003, we received an unrestricted grant from Pharmacia, and we also organised the first course for psychologists from Latin America, including El Salvador and Mexico, meeting in Italy. Singing for our supper. Giorgio is an accomplished and well-known and loved tenor, not only in his own country, Italy, but around the world. He also composed the music to Fly High and Ich auch. Giorgio gives many concerts for free, collecting only donations for IPSO, and it's through this wonderful generosity that IPSO has managed to survive through the tough times. The spirit of IPSO has survived through music, and for this we salute you, Giorgio. The 5th International PWS Conference was held in 2004 in Christchurch, New Zealand. As Giorgio's mandate as president finished, Pam Eisen from USA was elected as IPSO's third president. Giorgio became IPSO's Director of Program Development, allowing a smooth transition to a quickly expanding IPSO. Financial income was stable. Pfizer, was Pharmacia, continued with its support, allowing IPSO to increase its work in developing new associations. IPSO and ESPE. Medical Alerts booklet was developed with help and support from the PWSO USA and translated into several languages. Pam and Giorgio visited Romania, Slovenia and Austria. In 2004, IPSO held its first booth at ESPE, which is the European Society for Pediatric Endocrinologists, in Basel, Switzerland, run by Pam and Jana Lee and funded by Pfizer. In 2005, IPSO's second ESPE booth at Lyon, in France, was sponsored by Pfizer. The second course for Latin American psychologists was held in Italy. Pam travelled extensively, supporting families, associations and attending conferences. There was the IPWSO booth in Thailand. Pam and Giorgio visited Romania and Bulgaria to support families and associations. There was the ESPE booth in Rotterdam with Pam and Giorgio, and she also attended conferences in Santiago and Ireland. In 2007, The 6th International PWS Conference was held in Cluj, Romania, and hosted by the PWSA Romania. A grant from Pfizer allowed families from Eastern countries to attend the conference. Pfizer granted further funds to train 2 specialists from India at the Bird Diagnostic Clinic. The ISPE booth was in Helsinki, Finland, run by Giorgio and Pam. Pam visited Chile and Argentina, Australia and New Zealand, supporting families, holding talks, and building networks with professionals. In 2008, the first Caregivers Conference was held in Herne in Germany, hosted by Hubert Sawyer and Norbert Hudebeck-Stuntebeck and their respective organisations. Opened by Pam Eisen, this conference was to become a fixture, and the Professional Provider Caregiver Board, PPCB, was created. On the 19th of November 2008, after a tough battle with cancer, Pam passed away. Tributes from families, specialists, professionals, friends and colleagues poured into IPWSO. She made hundreds of families feel loved, and she made hundreds of professionals, whether medical or political, very aware of the special needs of Prader-Willi syndrome. For this, Pam, we salute you and remember you. Xuan Pei Lin, IPWSO's Vice President, Dr. Xuan Pei Lin from Taiwan, took the role of President after the death of Pam. It was a sad time for us all, but we were determined to carry on as she would have wanted. 2 new board members were seconded, Jackie Waters from the UK and Janely Heinemann from the USA. In 2 short years, Taiwan was to host the 7th International PWS Conference. Xuan Pei saw to it that this was a seamless transition. The Taiwan PWS Association, with government assistance, hosted a magnificent conference for the first time in Asia. Attended by over 300 participants from as far away as Cuba, Finland and South America, the conference lived up to its slogan, East meets West. Without Xuan Pei's help and guidance, IPWSO would have been the poorer. So for this, we salute you. At the 2010 conference, Xuan Pei Lin stepped down from the presidency of IPWSO and Suzanne Cassidy was elected his replacement. This is the first time IPWSO has elected a president who is not a parent of someone with PWS. An important step, as we needed someone able to communicate with our growing scientific involvement and to lead IPWSO through the global economic downturn. The launch of Prader-Willi World app. On Christmas Eve 2014, we launched our PWW app for Android phones. Dedicated to quick, at-hand information about the syndrome, this app has been downloaded over 1,260 times with over 800 users around the world, including professionals and families. This was a bold innovation and took many hours of design, not to mention fundraising. Under the guidance of Susie Cassidy, our professional advisory boards have consolidated to form a major part of our IPWSO resources. Our Clinical Scientific Advisory Board, CSAB, under the direction of Professor AJ Tony Holland from the UK, Professional Providers Caregivers Board, PPCB, co-chaired by Norbert Hudebeck-Stuntebeck from Germany and Mary Kay Siccardi from the USA. FamCare for families with adults with Prader-Willi syndrome living at home is chaired by Georgina Luffnan from Australia. With a membership of 10 clinical and research specialists, this board produces a quarterly review of published work relating to the science of Prader-Willi syndrome. This research is provided free of charge and distributed via our mailing list on a quarterly basis. Any questions directed to IPWSO that require specialised answers are directed to the CSAB for their input. Topics are varied and wide-ranging and always answered. CSAB is responsible for planning and chairing the IPWSO scientific conferences. The PPCB. Formed after the first Providers Conference, this board now plays a vital role in supporting the management of residential options for adults with Prader-Willi syndrome. The board meets annually, holds conferences for professional caregivers, and has jointly written best practice guidelines for residential care of those with Prader-Willi syndrome. This work is available through IPWSO on CD. FamCare. FamCare was formed specifically for families caring for an adult with Prader-Willi syndrome and living at home. The committee is primarily composed of parents who discuss the issues of care and suggest ways of managing the situation. FamCare's work is published on our website and translated into many languages. FamCare is proving a valuable resource for families. To all our presidents, we thank you, we salute you. We would not be here if it weren't for your dedication, love and direction. We look forward to our next 25 years. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead.